Chantal Maud was known as the Black Widow for a reason. Her success required the sacrifice of the men around her. At 28,251 feet on K2's summit, snow-blind and freezing, she faced a deadly descent she could not navigate alone. The killer mountain was about to demand the highest price yet for her ambition. Chantal Maud emerged from the foothills of the French Alps with an ambition that would define mountaineering's most controversial career. Born into a landscape of winter sports, she transitioned rapidly from alpine skiing to serious mountaineering. Her progression through European climbing competitions was meteoric. She earned mountain guide certification and tackled the most difficult routes across France. At 22, she entered an ice climbing competition that drew Europe's strongest alpinists. She was the only female competitor among 20 athletes. The striking young climber placed third, a performance that immediately drew attention from the French National Mountaineering Association. Her combination of technical skill and magnetic presence made her an instant star in the male-dominated world of high-altitude climbing. The pattern began early. Maud discovered that her attraction could secure advantages that pure climbing ability might not. In an era when mountaineering was overwhelmingly masculine, her presence in base camps created a dynamic she learned to exploit. Fellow climbers later recalled her deliberate provocation of competition among men, watching them vie for her attention with what appeared to be calculated amusement. Her focus shifted to the Himalayas after successful climbs in the Andes, where she had summited 3 6,000-meter peaks, including Huascaran. Her bold paragliding descent from one summit caught the attention of an expedition organizer who invited her to Everest in 1991. Although she did not summit that year, the experience crystallized her ambition. She would pursue only the 8,000-meter peaks, climbing in the demanding alpine style without supplemental oxygen. The relationship with American climber Thor Kieser exemplified the pattern. A destructive pattern would follow her throughout her career. Kieser was deeply enamored, and they planned a joint ascent in Argentina. When Maud said she lacked funds for airfare, Kieser took an extra job delivering pizzas to pay for her ticket. The gesture showed the lengths men would go to support her ambitions. The Argentina expedition revealed psychological manipulation in her climbing partnerships. During the climb, Maud suddenly grew distant, leaving Kieser desperate to understand what had changed. Before one summit attempt, she told him that if they reached the top that day, everything would be fine between them. That promise turned what should have been a calculated mountaineering decision into an emotional gamble with deadly stakes. Kieser became consumed by the need to deliver her to the summit. On the final push, after 18 hours of continuous climbing in the rain, he was leading through a difficult section near the top. His body felt like lead from exhaustion, but the promise of restored affection drove him beyond rational limits. When he shifted his weight onto a hold, the rock pulled free. The resulting 20-meter fall left him with a broken arm and a torn eyelid, effectively ending his climb. The emotional gamble had cost him everything. Other teams helped lower Kieser to base camp, while Maud accepted an invitation to join another team's summit push the following morning. Her parting words were simple. She no longer loved him. The American headed home physically and emotionally shattered, eventually requiring therapy to process the experience. His therapist advised him never to cross paths with her again. The aftermath revealed the calculating nature of her partnerships. Despite the trauma Kieser endured, when Maud announced her intention to attempt K2, he immediately sought a position on an expedition to the same mountain. The psychological hold she maintained over her former partners created a pattern of repeated risk-taking that would define her entire career. This understanding misses the real executioner. The dangerous precedent established in Argentina would escalate on the world's most technical peaks, where the margin for emotional decision-making approaches zero. The arithmetic of high-altitude climbing becomes brutal when psychological manipulation enters the death zone. But the manipulation that worked in the Andes would prove fatal on the world's most dangerous mountain. The question was, who would be lost next? Who would pay the ultimate price for her ambition on K2? The decision to join a Russian-American expedition to K2 demonstrated how thoroughly Maud's psychological influence could override rational judgment. Keyser, despite his therapist's explicit warning, could not resist the opportunity to prove himself worthy of her attention once more. The Killer Mountain would provide the ultimate testing ground for this toxic dynamic. K2 presented immediate complications beyond the technical climbing challenges. Located in Pakistan, a Muslim country with strict cultural customs, the mountain demanded respect for local traditions. Maud, however, showed little interest in observing these protocols. She wandered the bazaars alone, wearing short clothing. Her casual disregard for local customs created tensions that nearly derailed the entire expedition before they even reached base camp. The Swiss team Maud originally joined intended to climb in pure alpine style, minimal gear, no fixed ropes, complete self-sufficiency. This approach required every team member to carry equal loads and to contribute to the collective effort of establishing camps. The system breaks down when one climber refuses to participate in the essential labor. Maud's load-carrying disparity became immediately apparent. While the men on her team hauled tents, stoves, fuel, and food to establish intermediate camps, her pack remained unusually small. A plush duck fastened to her frame became a visible symbol of her refusal to carry essential gear. The men compensated by shouldering additional weight. They justified the imbalance through their desire to keep her on the expedition. The Swiss team's eventual withdrawal created a legal crisis under Pakistani mountaineering regulations. When they abandoned the attempt because of storms and excessive crowding on the mountain, Maud should have descended with them. Pakistani law forbade climbers from switching teams mid-expedition. Her determination to remain on the mountain for a summit attempt placed her in violation of those regulations. Keyser's offer to include her in the American team represented another calculated risk, driven more by emotion than logic. By facilitating her illegal team switch, he violated Pakistani law while enabling her continued manipulation of the expedition dynamics. The decision showed how her influence could compromise not just individual judgment, but legal and ethical boundaries. While Keyser dedicated himself to the essential but unglamorous work of fixing ropes and hauling gear to high camps, Maud began a relationship with his climbing partner, Ed Viesturs. The timing was particularly cruel. Keyser was literally building the infrastructure that would enable her summit attempt while she pursued his teammate. Her behavior in base camp became increasingly promiscuous, a pattern that appeared designed to maximize psychological pressure on her former partner. The summit push, on July 28th, revealed the full extent of the load disparity. Keyser carried the heaviest pack, including tent, stove, sleeping bag, food, and rope. The weight distribution forced tactical compromises that would prove nearly fatal. They were compelled to dump essential gear, including their sleeping bags, to maintain climbing speed. After a bivouac without proper insulation, Keyser suffered frostbite to his feet. Maud's response to these sacrifices demonstrated a casual indifference to the risks others were accepting on her behalf. When Keyser descended to retrieve the discarded gear, she casually asked him to bring her sleeping bag as well. The additional weight and effort required no acknowledgement or gratitude, simply an expectation that others would accommodate her needs. The final summit push on August 2nd created the most dangerous scenario yet. Keyser began breaking trail through half-meter snow, the most energy-intensive task in high-altitude climbing. For 200 meters below the summit, he fought through the deep snow, creating a path that others could follow with significantly less effort. The work was exhausting him beyond the point of safe descent. Keyser had done everything to enable her ascent, but as they began the final deadly push, a single rational decision he made would save 3 lives, and it wasn't his own. What was the critical choice that broke the Black Widow's pattern? The voice that pierced his mind, telling him to go down if he wanted to live, represented a moment of clarity that may have saved 3 lives. The critical choice was not to save her, but to save himself. Keyser's decision to retreat, despite being so close to the summit, demonstrated the kind of rational decision-making that high-altitude survival demands. His withdrawal allowed Maud and Alexei Nikiforov to follow the broken trail without the energy expenditure that would have made their own survival questionable. The fixed rope Kieser installed in the bottleneck during his descent proved crucial for the others' survival. Using 50 meters of rope abandoned by Nikiforov, he rigged a safety line in the most technical and dangerous section of the route. This infrastructure would later prevent multiple deaths during the rescue operations that followed. The brutal arithmetic was becoming clear. Maud's summit success was built on a foundation of others' sacrifices, risks, and near-death experiences. But the pattern of requiring rescue would only end when the mountain finally stopped playing by her rules. K2 was not the end. Maud's reputation as a summit achiever only grew, attracting bigger expeditions and more experienced guides. But her pattern of requiring rescue would continue with deadly consistency, culminating in a rescue so dramatic it would permanently blacklist her from the world's most respected climbing teams. Next, that story follows. Maud's K2 success opened doors to increasingly prestigious expeditions, but the pattern of requiring rescue continued with deadly consistency. Her reputation as a summit achiever attracted sponsors and expedition leaders, yet those who climbed with her discovered the true cost of her ambitions. Distorted. The 1993 Everest expedition with a New Zealand team revealed how her self-promotion distorted reality. Despite climbing with 9 other mountaineers and 8 high-altitude Sherpas, Maud insisted she was climbing alone and moving faster than her teammates. That claim deeply annoyed those providing essential support, particularly when her actual performance contradicted her public statements. Collapse. Her physical condition during these attempts became increasingly concerning to expedition leaders. She reached 8,400 meters, but moved too slowly and was insufficiently dressed for the extreme conditions. The decision to turn back was made for her by more experienced climbers who recognized the signs of impending collapse. On another attempt, she reached 8,800 meters without official permission, climbing with a Sherpa named Pemba. Back in Kathmandu, she was assessed substantial fines for illegal ascents, but she returned to France without paying, publicly criticizing Himalayan bureaucracy. Meticulous. Rob Hall was renowned for his meticulous safety protocols and client management. He should have been immune to Maud's influence. Yet, on the slopes of Everest, he was forced into a critical intervention that nearly cost him his own life, dragging the Black Widow down the mountain like a sack of potatoes. Slowest. 2 years later, in 1995, Rob Hall's team encountered one of the most dramatic rescue scenarios yet. Throughout the climb, she was consistently the slowest member of his group, struggling with basic tasks that other clients managed without difficulty. At the South Summit, approximately 8,750 meters, Hall was forced to make a critical intervention. Maud had stopped moving, her lips blue and numb, her eyes unfocused. Hall put a hand on her shoulder, firmly insisting she turn back immediately. She could only nod softly, unable to protest or even speak coherently. 30 meters into the descent, she collapsed completely and lost consciousness on the slope. Hall realized he faced a nightmare scenario, dragging an unconscious climber down Everest's most technical sections at extreme altitude. The rescue required tremendous personal risk from multiple climbers, including Ed Viesturs, who was saving Maud for the second time in his climbing career. The rescue team managed to get her to the tents and administer first aid. Her recovery was remarkably rapid once she reached lower altitude and received medical attention. The next day, she was back to her usual behavior in base camp, walking around as if nothing had happened. This quick recovery pattern became characteristic. Near-death experiences followed by apparent amnesia about the risks others had accepted on her behalf. Hall returned from the expedition furious, telling other expedition leaders that he had dragged her down the mountain like dead weight. For a guide of Hall's reputation, this was the ultimate professional condemnation. He permanently barred her from future expeditions, stating that her presence created unacceptable risks for other climbers and guides. Thor Kaiser's later assessment captured the psychological dynamic. He explained that Chantal did not take care of herself or think about safety. He said he climbed with her because he loved her, not because it was safe. Dan Mazur's analysis provided insight into the mechanics of her influence. He observed that all those guys wanted to sleep with her, that she really did use her body to wield influence over men, and that she had a winner's character. The assessment acknowledged her manipulative tactics and her undeniable determination to succeed at any cost. After 6 failed Everest attempts, Maud switched her focus to CHOOYU in 1996. The mountain had no recorded female ascents at the time, offering her an opportunity for a significant first. She joined an American team, but when the summit push encountered severe weather, all her companions turned back to safety. Maud's decision to continue alone in deteriorating conditions raised immediate questions about her judgment. The weather that day was genuinely terrible. On nearby Everest, the same storm system killed Rob Hall and Scott Fisher in what became known as the 1996 Everest disaster. While experienced guides were dying on a more familiar mountain, Maud claimed she had soloed CHOOYU. Her account of the summit lacked crucial evidence. She said her camera froze and prevented summit photographs, and she described winds that would have made photography impossible. She said she hurried down immediately because of dangerous weather. Many experienced climbers expressed skepticism. They called a solo summit in those conditions implausible, especially while elite mountaineers were dying elsewhere in the range. The timing of her claimed success during the Everest disaster struck many as suspiciously convenient. While the mountaineering world was focused on the tragedy unfolding on Everest, her unverified solo ascent generated headlines without the scrutiny it might otherwise have received. Her subsequent climb of Manaslu solidified her media image. The French press dubbed her the greatest Nike of our time, celebrating her as a national hero of mountaineering. The publicity obscured growing concerns within the climbing community about her methods and the pattern of endangering others. Kaiser's final assessment of their relationship revealed the psychological toll of her manipulative tactics. He described how she had power over men and joked about having too many men and too little time. Ex-lovers approached her like wolves at sheep. She would stare back with feigned ignorance, pretending not to recognize men who had risked everything. The casual cruelty of erasing those men showed the calculating nature behind her climbing success. But in the death zone, psychological games are no match for the mountain's cold, final arithmetic. After years of defying death through the sacrifice of others, Chantal Maud's final climb ended not in a dramatic rescue, but in a tent. The official cause of death was an ice block, but the evidence, a broken neck, a suffocated partner, and no witnesses, suggests a mystery far colder than the mountain itself. What really happened in that tent on Dhaulagiri? The final chapter of Maud's controversial career unfolded on Dhaulagiri in 1998, ending with circumstances that remain unexplained to this day. She was climbing with Angry Sherpa, described more as a friend than a paid porter. That suggested a different dynamic than her typical expeditions, where men often competed for her attention. They established Camp 2 near the Italian team's tents. Franco Brunella, an experienced Italian climber, specifically warned Maud about a dangerous crevasse higher on the route. She thanked him for the information and retired to her tent with the Sherpa. The interaction was routine, showing no signs of the tragedy that would follow. The Italian team's Sherpas made the decision to descend to wait out heavy snowfall, a standard safety protocol in deteriorating weather conditions. As they prepared to leave, they observed Maud's tent becoming buried under accumulating snow. When they returned later, the tent remained in the same buried state, which raised immediate concerns about the occupants' welfare. The Sherpas' decision to investigate likely saved crucial evidence. They dug out the tent and made a horrifying discovery. Both Maud and Angry Sherpa were dead in their sleeping bags. The scene presented immediate mysteries that have never been satisfactorily explained. Maud's injuries were severe, with reports indicating a broken neck and a deformed jaw, consistent with massive blunt force trauma. The Sherpa, however, showed signs of suffocation. The disparity in these reported injuries indicated that whatever killed them affected each person differently, immediately raising questions about the official cause. The official theory proposed that an ice block had fallen on their tent during the night. This explanation seemed plausible, given the location and weather conditions, but crucial evidence was missing. No witnesses saw or heard the impact that would have been required to cause such devastating injuries. The lack of external tent damage consistent with a massive ice fall raised additional questions. The circumstances were particularly strange. They died in what should have been relative safety. They were not caught in an avalanche while climbing, not lost in a whiteout during descent, not overcome by altitude sickness in the death zone above 8,000 meters. They died in their tent at an established camp, surrounded by other expeditions. The brutal arithmetic of Maud's death defied the pattern that had defined her career. For years, she had required rescue from increasingly dangerous situations, surviving through the sacrifices of men who risked everything to save her. On Dhaulagiri, no rescue was possible because no one knew she needed help until it was far too late. The mystery remains still unsolved 25 years later. The ice block theory provides a convenient explanation, but the specific nature of the injuries and the lack of witnesses leave crucial questions unanswered. The Black Widow's final climb ended not with another dramatic rescue, but with a death that defied explanation in the supposed safety of base camp.